Welcome to the 141 Isuzu fire truck induction video. The purpose of this video is to familiarise the crew with the features of the Isuzu tanker, demonstrate the operation of the equipment and controls, demonstrate a pre-start and weekly check, raise awareness that this truck is higher and longer with overhang behind the rear wheels than a Fire King, that therefore affects approach and departure angles on slopes in comparison to a Fire King. Raise awareness that fire trucks in general have a high centre of gravity and will roll a bit on the suspension when fully loaded. Raise awareness that the handling of the truck will alter as the water level in the tank changes, and that drivers will need to adjust to compensate for these changes. Some important points need to be made regarding the transmission, transfer case and diff lock. Drive is auto shift first gear to sixth gear. 3 is auto shift first gear to third gear. 2 is auto shift first gear to second gear. 1 is first gear only. Note, when downshifting drive to 3 shifts the transmission down 4 gears and should only be done at low speed. It is a big step down in gears and could result in drivetrain damage if attempted at higher speeds. The transfer case changes can only be made with the truck stationary and the transmission in neutral. By engaging the centre diff lock, the driver is changing the configuration from all-wheel drive to a true four-wheel drive configuration. The central tyre inflation system requires planning and anticipation to be used most effectively. Inflate time from the program settings 1 to 3 is at least 10 minutes. Note, selecting a gear to maintain a suitable speed while keeping the engine revs around 2000 RPM will minimise re-inflate time. Deflate time is around half of inflate times. Front and rear pressures always need to be set individually. Do this using the front-rear button. Tyre pressures can be either increased or decreased from the programmed pressures in all settings by utilising the up and down buttons. The pressures can then be defaulted back to the program settings by pressing the appropriate setting button. Fire protection features of the truck. The deluge system floods water over the windows and wheels of the truck. It uses approximately 100 litres per minute, which equates to 6 minutes from when the low water mark is achieved in the tank. The more water in the tank, the longer the deluge system will last. The deluge system is designed to operate at 500 kPa. This is achievable with the pump running at idle revs. The deluge system can be operated from both the cab and the mid-deck. Mid-deck emergency spray can only be operated from the mid-deck. Fire reflective blinds need to be re-rolled and secured with some care to ensure that they redeploy efficiently if required in an emergency and do not impair the driver's field of vision. Heat shielding. Note the high sides on the mid-deck tank area for radiant heat protection. Critical hose shielding. Note fire sleeving on hoses that are essential to the operation of the truck, including brake and air hoses and some electrical wiring. Metallisation. Note that some of the original plastic guards and fittings around the cab and engine bay have been replaced with metal items to reduce damage from impact and high heat burnover situations. Tadpole tape has been added to lower door seals to minimise smoke and/or flame intrusion to the cab. In-cab breathing apparatus. Note, this is an on-demand system, so the user should breathe normally, and the air will flow as required. There is a button on the back of the mask that will provide the wearer with a blast of air if activated. Fire blankets are available, with 4 being stowed in the cab and 3 on the mid-deck. Work platform shelter. This folds out of the cab damage minimisation system with drop-down blinds that reach down to the deck. Cab damage minimisation system and the B-post stiffener are fitted to provide ROPs and FOPs protection to the cab. Intercom system to assist with communication from the cab to the work platform. Cameras on rear work area mid-deck and reversing camera with image displayed on screen in cab. Low water alarm and flashing light. This activates when the tank water level falls below 600 litres from the original 3,600 litre capacity. There are also sight tubes at the front and rear of the tank. Plumbing inlets. If utilising the rear inlet valve, open the tank to pump valve to allow freer flow of water into the tank. 6. Suction fill and drafting. Ensure the pump to tank valve is closed. Ensure that all hose and fitting seals are in place. Open the pump inlet valve. Operate the priming pump until a steady stream of water is discharged from the primer outlet. Stop the priming pump. Start the pump motor at idle. Slightly open the recirculate fill valve whilst watching the pressure and compound gauge to see that prime is maintained. If prime is lost, it is okay to run the primer pump for short periods, 5 to 10 seconds, with the main pump running. Once prime is established, slowly open the recirculate fill valve and increase the pump motor RPM. If prime cannot be established, check seals, fittings, etc., rectify the problem and repeat the process. Pump system. The pump is a Daly HE350 pump driven by a 3-cylinder Hatz air-cooled engine. The pump fuel consumption is 8 litres per hour. The motor draws fuel from the main tank using the truck engine fuel pump to a 5-litre tank at the pump. If the truck engine is turned off, the 5-litre tank at the pump will only allow about 20 minutes runtime for the pump. Maximum static lift is 6 metres. There is an emergency stop for the pump. This can be utilised if the normal shutoff will not work. It is located at the rear of the pump. It is secured by a cable tie. It is a fuel shutoff valve. Please note, if this is utilised, the pump motor will need to be primed before it can be restarted. Pump controls are in 3 separate locations. Firstly, the cab, which has start, stop, run light and water level functions. Secondly, the mid-deck work platform, which has start, stop, water level, pressure control and pressure gauge. And lastly, the rear, which has start, stop, water level, pressure control, pressure gauge and compound gauge. The compound gauge displays vacuum when pumping and drafting. Foam system is Quenchmaster CP500. The controls on the system are foam class selector, for our needs Class A, flushing, no need to flush for our purposes, and foam bypass. All switches should be set to off when foam is not required. Note the left and right sections of the front spray bar can be operated together or individually. Note the monitor outlets have cam lock fittings. It is critical that the monitor is connected securely before opening the monitor outlet valve. Filters and flush valves. Note the front flush valve flushes both the spray bar filter and the deluge system valve at the same time. To improve effectiveness, this can be done with the pump running. The tank to pump flush valve relies on the head pressure of the volume of water in the tank and should only be operated when the pump is not running. All 3 flush valves contain wire mesh strainers that should periodically be removed and cleaned. Isolation valves. If damage occurs to parts of the outlet systems, the damaged sections can be isolated to allow the rest of the outlets to be used. The front isolation valve will isolate the spray bar and mid-deck outlets. The rear isolation valve will shut off supply to the front spray bar and deluge system. Only operate this valve with caution because of the risk of operating the truck with the deluge system not being operational. In-cab chargers. The spare chainsaw battery should always be stored in the charger. The spare VHF radio battery should be secured with the straps whilst in the chargers to avoid damage to the batteries and chargers. Communication systems. Radios used for communication with OFO base and other fire agencies. Fireline radios can be used for communication from the cab and the crew, either on the truck, mid-deck and/or at the pump. Intercom can be used effectively for communication between the mid-deck and cab, but can be difficult to hear at the pump. The PA system is hard to hear with the truck running. Auxiliary equipment. The quick fill pump has a safety chain attached and is a 2-person lift from stowage to the ground. The electric chainsaw has 2 batteries, with one to remain in the saw and one in the in-cab charger. A fully charged battery gives approximately 30 to 40 minutes runtime. The jumper leads are fitted with an Anderson plug to make them compatible with bulk water carriers and Fire Kings. The front recovery point is a single point in the centre of the bull bar. The rear recovery points must be used together using the toe strap, bridle strap and bow shackles that are stored in the lockers. Towing from one side only could result in significant damage to the chassis of the truck. Truck pre-start check. The engine oil, coolant and power steering oil can be checked without raising the cab. The windscreen washer fluid container is behind the front bonnet hatch. This needs to be opened from inside the cab. A visual inspection should be conducted around and under the truck to look for leaks or damage. The CTIS switches should be switched on and the operator should listen for air leaks. The in-cab air cylinder should be checked for the volume of air remaining in the tank. This can be done by turning the valve on and observing the pressure. A full cylinder will read approximately 400 bars. The cylinder should be recharged when the pressure reads 150 bars or less. Fire systems pre-start check. Check the pump engine oil level. Conduct a visual of the pump and pump motor for leaks or damage. This is important as the motor is fully enclosed. Raising and lowering the cab. To conduct a weekly check, the cab of the truck must be raised. This is a two-person operation. Before raising the cab, set the ignition to accessories to prevent the truck from self-isolating. When lowering the safety bar, take care not to damage the power steering oil reservoir. Note the above procedure is available in the operator's manual. Weekly check. To check the auto transmission level, make sure there is oil on the dipstick and that there are no signs of the red transmission oil under the truck. Overfilling the transmission can cause faulty operation and damage. Do a visual inspection of the drive belts for unusual wear and tear. Operate the CTIS to selected pressures. Check all stowage equipment to ensure it is present and in good condition.